My name is Solana Mummert, and I was 5 years old when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was waking up in the middle of the night and I would like throw up everywhere. I was also wetting the bed a lot. Anyway, my grandma was a nurse and she was the first one to suggest diabetes. So my mom made a doctor's appointment at my family doctor and took me in and said she wanted to have my blood sugar tested. And the nurse, she was like, there's no way that it's diabetes, but they did the blood sugar test anyway, and I think my blood sugar was around like 456. In a normal individual, it's usually about 90. So then I got admitted to the hospital and I was there for about a week. There's a lot that people think that they know about diabetes, but definitely don't. Like, I have people tell me all the time that I shouldn't eat certain foods. Or they'll ask me if I'm allowed to have certain, like if I eat a piece of candy in front of them, they'll be like, oh, won't that mess up your sugar? And it's like, no, I have insulin. Like, I'm not entirely different than any other normal person. I just have extra steps that I have to take in order to not die. There's a lot of people that don't like realize that there's two types. I don't want to undermine type 2 at all, but with type 2, it's more of like an insulin resistance, which happens if you have too much fat on your body. That's not true for everyone with type 2. So I used to have a lot of people when I was younger tell me that if I exercised or ate healthier, that my diabetes would go away. And I don't think there was a lot of people back in the day that didn't realize that, like, there's the insulin resistance type of diabetes, and then there's my organ literally doesn't work anymore type diabetes. Basically what happens with type 1 diabetes, it's an autoimmune disorder where the beta cells are the ones that create and produce insulin. Your immune system attacks those cells thinking that it's a virus and essentially shuts that part of your pancreas down. Your pancreas has other functions. After your immune system attacks the beta cells, it's no longer able to produce insulin on its own, and then you become insulin dependent and you have to get an insulin pump like I have, or you can do shots. They're working on other stuff like an insulin inhaler. Before I got the insulin pump, I had two different types of pens that I would use. One was a rapid acting insulin that I would give if my blood sugar was too high, or that's what I would also give before I ate. And then I had a long-acting insulin that I would give twice a day. It takes longer to break down in the system, so it is kind of present in my system throughout the entire day, and it prevents my blood sugar from spiking at random points. I have my insulin pump that has a whole bunch of different stuff that comes with it. There's like the cartridge, the syringe that you use to put the insulin into the pump. As a teenager, I kind of hated that I had it, and I rebelled against it, and I refused to take care of it, and it messed me up a lot. My mentality behind it was that I didn't ask for it, so I'm not going to take care of it. By not taking care of it, I started developing a thing called diabetic retinopathy, which means that there's damage to the inner part of my eye. And if I had continued not taking care of it, I had at some point would have gone blind. It's taught me that, like, you kind of have to deal with the hand that you're dealt, and rebelling against it isn't really gonna change anything. It's just gonna make it worse for you. It's definitely not as easy as people think it is. I think part of the reason I rebelled for so long was because I had a team of doctors who weren't diabetic, and I felt like they didn't understand what I was going through. And then they were telling me all this stuff that I had to do and all this stuff I had to change, and I felt like I was being talked down to rather than having someone understand like what I'm feeling. Ironically enough, now that I'm pregnant, like my entire team are type 1 diabetics who have just had children. So they all like completely understand. And I feel like every time I go in there, they're like reassuring, and they tell me that I'm doing a good job, and it makes me feel like a whole lot better. It's not easy. It doesn't get easier. You kind of just have to learn to live with it and realize that you're not just taking care of yourself, you're also taking care of the people around you, because if bad stuff happens to you, then it's not just you who's affected, it's your loved ones that have to also deal with the complications and the outcome of what happens if you just completely neglect to take care of yourself.